Welcome to 6 Million Seeds. I'm Meryl Fury.
And I'm Carrie Bruno. We are healthcare professionals and co-creators of this podcast.
This episode is brought to you by the healing power of lifestyle medicine.
There was a time when a coworker of mine that I worked with back in the days when I was teaching, she had gone through a nice weight loss and I didn't even know what she was doing. The main thing that stood out for me was when she said, it's a conspiracy. Like they are making the food so that we're addicted. And she was specifically talking about processed foods and fast foods, but she emphasized French fries from a certain company and how they add sugar so that we're addicted. And it's like she had this insight that it took me years to figure out. But I wonder often, how is she doing? Because she had this awareness a long time ago, but clearly she knew that many of these companies hire their scientists to figure out what it is that they need to do to their foods so that we can be addicted, so that we can't just have the one French fry or the one chip, but we become addicted to these foods.
In today's episode, we had the pleasure of speaking with Maya Acosta. For years, Maya has been passionate about helping everyday people understand that they have the power to upgrade their health. Maya formed the organization called Plant-Based Dallas-Fort Worth, where she and her husband, Dr. Riz, offered lectures, potlucks, documentary screenings, and walks with the doc in order to educate the community about the benefits of adopting a whole food plant-based lifestyle. In addition to leading Plant-Based Dallas-Fort Worth, she also has a podcast and a YouTube channel with plenty of information, videos, and food demos. During the conversation today, Maya shares her experience advocating for the importance of lifestyle medicine, especially for children.
Welcome to 6 Million Seeds. My name is Meryl.
And my name is Carrie.
And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Maya Acosta in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas.
Welcome, Maya.
Thank you, Carrie and Meryl. Thank you for having me on your show.
We're thrilled. It is our pleasure. I met Maya through the Plant Pure Pod community. She and I are on a committee together where we focus on promoting plants. There's a surprise. And Maya is just a shining light all the time. She's also a health educator and promotes plant-based living, has lots of experience to share. So we're going to jump right into a conversation with her.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you.
So starting off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe your background?
Yeah. So it's interesting because many people think that my husband was the one that got me involved in this way of life. But it's really the other way around. Before I met him, I would say that probably in college, I stopped eating red meat and pork. I don't come from a background of doctors and anyone in healthcare, but I had an interest very early on because of just kind of not a healthy relationship with food in terms of myself, was very, had all these fears of gaining weight. And I was very obsessed with food restriction. And that really was a result of us being immigrants from Mexico. So we came here when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and we were pretty isolated. My mother had relatives here. She came back to the States. She was raised by her father, and she wanted to get to know her mom and siblings. And so we can come back, but we were really isolated as a family. And those first 5 years were really hard. And I think that was part of when I started to see, especially my mother's body change, and I became a little too focused. It also didn't help that my mother was a heavy dieter. So that was going on as well.
So you said people think that your husband would be the one who brought you to this change. Who is your husband?
Oh, okay. So my husband, his name is Dr. Rizwan Bukhari. He's out of Dallas. He's been here most of his life. He's a vascular surgeon, and thank God he's now plant-based. So now he also helps to educate the community about the benefits of going plant-based. And also he became board certified in lifestyle medicine in 2019. So he really is working hard at educating people so that they don't end up on his table.
Yeah, there are not enough doctors working to stop their business.
Yeah.
Slow down the flow. That would be a great thing.
Right. So yeah, that's kind of what happened was in college, I decided I was very skinny. My sisters would teach me and call me Bony Roach. And I just because I just was my arms, I was very, very skinny. And in college, I wanted to study psychology. That was kind of the field I wanted to go into. And I took a nutrition class, just a basic class on how my goal had been to gain healthy weight without gaining too much weight. So I was already, that was the start of my trying to figure out this thing about food. And I would say that I spend the rest of my years just trying to figure it out. I was mainly a pescatarian most of my life. When I stopped eating, I always say like I stopped eating red meat and pork, but as a Hispanic, like as a Mexican family, I stopped eating a lot of other things too. So I was recently telling someone about that. That meant like chitlins and liver. I don't even want to say more, because I don't want people to feel uncomfortable, but there were other things that I stopped eating along with red meat and pork. And so I spent most of my life eating fish. That's what I really liked. I had my favorite dishes. And then I would say around my mid 30s, I started to have issues and I didn't know what was going on with my health, but I was feeling, at least when I was a teacher, the school nurse told me that I had the health of a 50-year-old and I was only 35.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to go to her for like B12 injections just so that I can have a little bit of energy. But I remember I moved away from my family in my 20s. And so I would go and visit. My parents are in Arizona. And I remember I would visit and always have to nap because my energy was so bad. And I found Dr. McDougall's book, The Start Solution.
Mhm.
And that was the beginning of me learning about whole foods, but I didn't even know there were whole foods because I don't think anywhere in the book he emphasized veganism or anything like that. And I just was experimenting with the different ways of incorporating more whole foods. And then one day I just said, you know what? Why am I still eating animals? But it wasn't initially, I didn't have the awareness that I now have about animal cruelty. I just was thinking if I don't have to eat animals, I won't. And then the first year was pretty tricky because we traveled a lot and I started eating junk food and then the weight came back on. And one day I said to Riz, I don't think I'm doing this right. There's something wrong. And I watched Plant Pure Nation and that was it. Like I watched Plant Pure Nation. I saw what he was doing, Nelson, in terms of like improving biometrics with 10-day jump starts.
Mhm.
And I said, I want to do this. I want to eat this way. I want to lead a group. But oh my God, we have a lot of homework. Like I made a list and I was like, honey, we're going to have to read this book and we're going to have to watch this documentary and we have to learn this stuff because how can we teach it if we don't know it? So I would say that I started diving into it for the simple reason of wanting to help other people as I was helping myself. And then I would say like by 2018, somewhere around that time, we joined Plant Pure Nation or Plant Pure Communities pod network and the weight just came off. But I always wanted to, by that time, I didn't want to be obsessed with weight. I wanted to improve my health. And yes, I started noticing that my energy improved, my skin started clearing up. Like I always suffered with acne. Most of my life, I had acne. I suffered with menstrual cramps, low energy, all of that started improving. And I did it first for about a year. And then my husband kind of just sat back and watched. He was like, here she goes. Because I'm very much into the holistic stuff. So he's always been like, okay, what are you doing now? Kind of thing. And then one day he made the choice. I decided that I wasn't going to push him or shame him or anything like that. One day he just made the decision that this was the way that he also wanted to live.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I want to go backwards a little bit, maybe, or I don't know where we are in your story, actually. Are we going backwards or forwards? But I know that you told me at one point that you were a teacher, an elementary school teacher, right?
Yes, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you have observed in your students related to food and health? And I know you told me that you've been in Texas most of your life, right?
No, I lived in Texas at one point, but long story, I've been back here. I've been in Dallas for about 10 years
Oh, okay.
with my
All right.
husband. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about where you were, what was going on when you were a teacher and what you saw your children, your students.
Right. And by the way, one of the reasons I left teaching was because of my health issues.
Mm,
I had no energy, and I taught elementary school. So I taught kinder, first grade, second grade, third, up to fifth grade.
okay.
And the last year that I taught, which was the year from hell, because
Mhm.
I had never taught fifth grade. And then they gave me the group of kids that were the most problematic. That same year, my health deteriorated quickly.
Mhm,
And now I understand, Meryl, like I understand that stress actually contributes to health issues. But
mhm.
at that time, I didn't know that stress was also playing a role. But so when I was teaching, my sister went into teaching first, and she kind of brought me along. She said, my sister is in the Houston area, and she said, this is a great opportunity. You can become a bilingual teacher. That's not really my background, but I've always been an educator in some capacity. And so I thought, I'm going to work with these children bilingual. A lot of them are immigrants like I was. So I'll be a role model. I'll encourage them to go to college. And I had all these dreams of being this amazing teacher.
Mm.
But children that come from limited resources and disadvantaged backgrounds, oh my gosh, they have so many issues. And I worked at Title I schools, and those are the schools where the kids are considered kind of like at risk, specifically or especially if the primary language in their home is Spanish. For some reason, having, not growing up in an English speaking home can be considered at risk as well. And so my job was to teach the kids how to master both languages at the same time. But what stood out to me were more of what felt like health issues at such a young age, was seeing children heavy at such a young age. And but also I saw many of my students not have food. They would come to school without any breakfast. And I began to this is before the restrictions that the districts started to have about giving kids candy and all of that. But I would keep, like donuts or biscuits, or it's something that I could give the kids if I could tell that they didn't eat. But again, I didn't know better. So it's not like I could have like a refrigerator there. But yeah, that's exactly what I saw. And then also, like I had one of my students, his mother made a living by selling tamales. And so I would
Yeah.
encourage her, yes, bring them to the teacher's lounge. I'll
Mhm.
encourage people, I'll buy from you. And I started eating the tamales, and that contributed to some weight gain. But, I think that a lot of my students, and I often refer to them as my kids, I always felt that my kids had other things that were more important than learning. And the reason I say that is that many of these children are more in survival mode.
Mhm.
They're just trying to figure out, are they going to move again? There's, the mobility rate is tremendous in many of these families. Many times they live in apartments because they can't afford to live in a home. So they're relocating or looking for work. And so it's very unstable for my kids. So I could start with 22 children and end up with maybe 16, but those 16 are not necessarily the original children that I started with. So there was one year where the PE teacher, one of her projects was to work with the kids to grow a community garden on campus.
Right.
And initially I was like, okay, I didn't think much about it until my students would come back from PE with the lettuce and, things that they had grown. And they would say, look, teacher, we grew this. This is ours.
Oh,
And I thought that was so beautiful that they may not have space where they live to grow anything, but to know that they created like the school garden is a beautiful thing.
if you're around a group of kids like we have up here with the kids we worked with this past summer, they had, I'm going to say, some sort of cultivated palates for
Mm.
flavors,
Yeah, that's for
right?
sure.
They weren't particularly ready for maybe raw broccoli or raw cauliflower or something like that. They weren't ready for that, but the ability to handle strong flavors,
Mhm.
they had that. right? So imagine you go home, you're eating strong flavors and all that, and then you come to school and they're giving you what?
Bland food,
bland baby carrots.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's not
Mm.
gonna fly. And then
Yeah.
you're gonna they throw that away. They go back home or they go back to their locker and they get their bag of chips or whatever it is, because that's what tastes good.
Right.
Actually
Yeah.
has flavor, right?
So there was a time when a coworker of mine that I worked with back in the days when I was teaching, she had gone through a nice weight loss and I didn't even know like what she was doing. The main thing that what stood out for me was when she said, it's a conspiracy. Like they are making the food so that we're addicted. And she was specifically talking about processed foods and fast foods, but she emphasized French fries from a certain company and how they add sugar so
Mhm.
that we're addicted. And it's like she had this insight that it took me years to figure out. But and I wonder often, like, how is she doing? Because she had this awareness a long time ago, but clearly she knew that many of these companies hire their scientists to figure out what it is that they need to do to their foods so that we can be addicted, so that we can't just have the one French fry or the one chip, but we become addicted to these foods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's follow that thread a little bit. So kids get introduced to these foods early.
Mhm.
French fries,
Like
prime example.
2 years old.
Maybe it
soon
might
as
even,
they're
as soon
able
as
to
they
eat
can
salads,
hold it,
yeah.
and they get a French fry. Oh my gosh, how many times have you seen that? The little kid with the French fry in their hand and they're, grinning from ear to ear. And we think about, okay, so we feed these foods to our children. The children get addicted,
Mhm.
right? And there's the conspiracy. It starts right there, right? And then those foods, we just continue to feed them. I mean, come on, who doesn't like to see a little kid happily holding a French fry with two little
Right.
teeth on the
Yeah.
bottom, right? And they're just so happy. But we cultivate those tastes
Mhm.
in our kids and we don't even realize that we're doing it. And then by the time they're 5,
Mhm.
10, 15, 20 years old,
Yeah. Those habits are
Mm.
deeply ingrained.
that's right.
Mhm.
And they're on the
It's
path.
It is part of the culture. It's part of what we as a group decide is okay. Like back in the day when teachers could have a jar full of candy, and I did too. And it was a treat. It was a reward for my children, and dentists still, I don't know if they do that anymore, but the dentist would do that. They'd give a
Yes.
child a lollipop after a visit, and we comfort children with ice cream and anything that they're going through. Even as a reward, they take them to a fast food joint. So we use food as a way because we know it feels good. Like we know the reward areas in our brain are just firing, like we're feeling really good and high from this dopamine fix or whatever. So we know this is happening. That's how we use it. And I even think we do it with adults, with each other when we want to cheat. We're eating a certain way, but we decide together we want to cheat and reward ourselves with ice cream or a
Mhm.
cookie or whatever that may be. And I just think that it's very accepted in
Yeah.
our society.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it happens all the time. I mean, I feel like we're in a period of change now. There's a period of transition happening when you see, school systems like New York and California and even Illinois just recently passed a law that starting in this coming school year, not this one that we're in now, but the next school year, that they will have plant-based or at least vegan options available for every child every day.
Yes,
Which is
yes.
pretty amazing. So it's moving, right?
Yeah.
And the idea would be that we're able to feed kids healthy foods and they can understand what those are, regardless of what happens at home, that the children have the opportunity to try healthy foods and maybe not have to deal with diabetes or gallbladder removals or obesity and can manage them, prevent them, reverse them with
Yeah.
diet.
Have you ever had any of the young vegan activists on your show?
No, we have not.
I was just thinking how much fun that would be. So I don't know if you know Dr. Brooke Goldner's son. He
I've
wrote
heard
a
of
book.
her.
Yeah, not the son.
What is their son's name?
I want to say Solomon. If you like, I can grab the copy and show you because he just wrote a book called Vegan Comebacks. And
Okay. Yeah.
do you want to see the book? I'll
Sure.
grab it. Okay. So I was at Midland, Texas for the Food as Medicine annual. They resumed the annual conference, and it's always Dr. Jim Loomis and I can't remember the other names right now, but so Dr. Brooke Goldner gave a talk, but the person that started the whole conference, the first lecture was her son, Solomon Tadlock, and this is his book.
Oh, wow. All
And
right.
he's an excellent speaker. Clearly, he's his mother's child. Because, so it's called 50 Comebacks for Vegans, but it's really what it is that he's been vegan all his life. He's been plant-based, I think mainly raw his entire life, as you know. He's a miracle baby. And he had, children that picked on him. And so during the pandemic, he had the opportunity to write a book, and he just decided to come back with educated answers to those things that they tease him about. And I heard his lecture, and I was so impressed with his approach and how he just speaks to children. And it's like, I think we play a huge role in getting children on board, but I also think that children are powerful in how they speak to other children.
Yeah.
Because they're the role models and the mentors. And after the lecture, I went up to him and I said, will you come on my podcast? And we haven't arranged it yet because then school started. But what ended up happening was that I felt that his message is for everyone. And it's really about standing in your truth, living in your truth, living in what you know is right for yourself, irregardless of how other people are judging you. And I told him, a lot of adults could benefit from your talks.
Right.
Yeah. But I'll give you a quick example of what it looks like. But I went through the entire book. So it says, so it can get very philosophical and very deep, but he says, so the attack that he received was, but the dairy industry doesn't kill cows. And the comeback is, actually they do. Just like people, cows need to get pregnant to produce milk. So farmers force them to get pregnant, then kill the baby calves to steal their money, their milk for people to consume. And then there's a more educated explanation of how that dairy industry works. And these are all attacks that he, I guess, wrote down every time kids picked on him for being vegan. And that has really, it looks like, built his self-esteem. And I feel like that's what children need. Like they need their own group, their own support group of people, like little vegan Steven or whatever his name is. I follow him on social media, and he's just a wonderful role model as well.
Yeah, he sounds like a really, really good role model for kids and adults. I mean, I think the information is pertinent to both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely get the same questions and barbs, regardless of age. There's always.
I will tell you that if I ever went back to teaching, which I doubt it, but I now have a heart for wanting to educate my kids about nutrition, and I say my kids as in the children that I service. Like if I were to go back into the classroom, I would teach what I'm supposed to teach, the curriculum, and then I would try to plant some seeds about nutrition to support the kids, because if they don't get it from their teachers, where are they getting it from? You don't see a lot of education on TV when it comes to plant-based nutrition.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Educators are a big part of where children learn these habits, even if it's not happening like specifically about this is our nutrition lesson today, kids. It might not happen like that. But anything, in my opinion, that happens inside an educational setting is a lesson, because you're in the educational setting, right? So if it is that your teacher is drinking, like first thing in the morning, it's chips and a Red Bull, well, that's what you're learning. right? If that's
Right.
what's on their desk
Yeah.
and that's what you see, that's what you're learning.
And even like you mentioned before, the teachers who use like candy or something as a reward, they're,
Mhm.
yeah, kids pick up on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The things
I
that are
mean,
in vending machines, all of it,
yeah,
education.
we really do need to support our teachers a lot more. When I was younger, and like I said, we migrated to the States and I lived in Arizona, and I had some really harsh teachers growing up initially because I had to learn English and they were very hard on me. I had one particular teacher who would hit me with the ruler every time I spoke Spanish.
Wow.
And then I had Ms. Valdez. Ms. Valdez was my fourth grade teacher who was the most beautiful soul. And she spoke several languages. And I remember she had a heart to heart with me once about this because I'm my identity and where do I stand and I'm here, but I'm not really from this culture and all that. And she just said, embrace that you speak two languages and that you can see two sides of the world, like two different ways of being. And from that point on, I just embraced who I was. And I feel like that we as teachers have that impact. We can have that impact on children if we just encourage them. And so again, it doesn't have to be like shaming children about what they're eating. Many of these kids that eat the food at school, that's the only choice they have. That is the
Right.
meal
Yeah.
that they're going to
It's either
have.
that or nothing for a lot of
That's
kids.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we need to create that change at a higher level so that these children could have the foods that they deserve to eat. They're not that much more expensive. And I know that there are many chefs that are interested in going into the school system and making a change. You know, what was his name? Jamie
Yeah,
Oliver
Amy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
wanted to create that change, but there's a strong system to fight in
Yes,
order to
there-
get past that. So it's got to be, everyone having a voice for these children because the children can't speak up for themselves and they don't even know that they deserve these healthy foods. They
That's
don't
right.
even know, they don't
They don't
have
even
the
know they
education.
exist. They don't
That's
even know it's
right.
an option.
Yeah.
They have no idea what 20, 30 years of eating this processed food is going to do to them down the line. And so if they could prevent disease and if they had that awareness, they would probably choose differently. But again, they have to be supported. The support has to come from home. It has to be the support has to be in the school system as well. So all of us have to play a role in supporting the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
That is the mission.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, if there was one thing you wanted to give our audience, one recommendation, what would you suggest?
In terms of something that they can do or
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
yeah, well, I did mention the documentary. Is that a good recommendation or
Yeah,
something
that's
Beautiful.
for the
great.
Yeah.
okay.
Put it down.
So the documentary, The Kids Menu, I watched it a few years ago on Netflix. I don't know where you can find it now, but you can probably go to their website. The movie, the documentary is not vegan. It doesn't promote 100% plant-based, but it promotes healthier options for the kids. And a lot of it is about bringing more fruits and vegetables into their diet. And it's about getting the school districts to be more involved in doing that and giving them recipes, teaching them at school. And then the kids take that information and they take it home and they want to replicate what they've learned in school in their homes. And I think that's something that we can encourage the schools to do if we can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great advice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Maya.
Yeah.
This has
Thank
been an
you.
excellent conversation. Thank you. Thank you.
One
Yes,
last
thank you.
question, I
Oh,
suppose.
go ahead.
Where,
Okay.
if our viewers want to learn more about you and what you're doing, where can they find you?
Okay, awesome. I have two websites. I'll tell you real quick if that's okay. One of them is my podcast, where, like you, Carrie and Merrill, I bring experts to talk to my audience about things that we can do to be healthier. And that's healthylifestylesolutions.org. And
Okay.
that's just, it'll give you all the ways that you can listen to the podcast. And then the other website is really the name of our Plant Pure Communities pod. So it's Plant-Based DFW. And that one is plantbaseddfw.com. That's, you'll see my husband and I are in the cover of that first page. And that's where we promote all the things that we want to support our community in, which includes us walking with the community. So we're part of Walk with the Doc. And we do food demos. We're starting to resume things again. As a matter of fact, we're going to host, I don't know if you know Dr. Will Tuttle.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So he's coming to Dallas.
All right.
Mm.
Yeah, and December 13th. So we're going to host an event here to support his work. He's back on tour. He's doing a 5-month tour.
Okay.
And we want to bring people together again to learn about, not only why we chose to be vegan, but, remind people that this is the best lifestyle that we can adopt for our bodies, for the animals, but also for the planet. And so he's going to give a lecture, and I'm in the process of organizing the whole event. And my goal is to have, to have it be one of the things that people enjoy about coming back together. Because I think we miss each other. We miss all these events that we used to have in person. So
Yeah.
Plant-Based DFW is our pod. Mhm.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed
Oh,
this conversation,
yeah,
and
thank
thank
you
you
so
for
much.
all the work that you're also doing, because it really touches my heart to know that the main mission that you have is to support the next generations, to support children, because you, like I said, they need a voice, and you are creating a voice for them. So thank you for that as well.
Well, you are so welcome. It's our honor and privilege to do it. All
Thank
right.
you.
We will see you soon. I'm sure we'll stay in touch. We have all
Yes.
your information. And if we wind up in Texas,
Yeah, we will.
we'll be on
we'll
your
find you.
doorstep.
That's right. That'd be fun. Take care.
All right. We'll
All
see you
right.
next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 6 Million Seeds is made possible by the generosity of Bruno Chiropractic, Acme Construction Metals, EXP Realty, and Deck It Out Builders. We thank you for your support.